Okay, hi. So today I am going to be making my pile of possibilities for November. The readathons that I usually do or participate in are Nonfiction November and Indigathon. I found out after I recorded this that Indigathon is not happening this year. However, there is a readathon going on Instagram. I believe it's called Skoden. I will confirm that. I'll put the information up. It's being hosted in part by Native Lady Book Warrior, that is Kim. She has a channel on YouTube that I will put in the description. And then they have a bingo board of possibilities that you can read through to participate in this readathon. So the Nonfiction November announcement video has gone out. There's 4 topic areas. They are record, element, border, and secret. So this is put on every year by Olive at A Book Olive, and I don't usually actually participate by choosing books for the prompt. It's more of just like getting myself to read nonfiction. So I'm going to start with the books from my 22 nonfiction books I want to read in 2022 list that I want to prioritize in the month. And then I'm going to move into some other nonfiction books that I want to read, and then I'm going to move into my books for Indigathon that don't count for Nonfiction November. And also a lot of the books that I'm going to be reading for Nonfiction November are by Indigenous authors, so there's a lot of crossover. So let's get into it. First, books from my 2022 list. Okay, the first one is The Undocumented Americans. Okay, it says, one of the first undocumented immigrants to graduate from Harvard reveals the hidden lives of her fellow undocumented Americans in this deeply personal and groundbreaking portrait of a nation. I worked as a peer-to-peer life coach when I was in college, and we worked with like underrepresented groups, mainly, and one of those groups were undocumented individuals. And I had to take like a few classes to like understand more of like the things that undocumented individuals face that are different from like the general population. And the statistics for like number of people that are undocumented was a lot higher than I assumed. And a lot of individuals actually don't know that they're undocumented until they get a bit older and like try to apply for a license or try to go to college or something like that. So I'm very interested in reading this book, A History of My Brief Body by Billy Ray Belcourt. This author originally wrote poetry. This is more of like essay, memoir style. This has been on my radar forever. I don't really love poetry, but I love poets who end up writing books or writing in like longer form, and because a lot of the time their writing is very lyrical and just makes for a more like inviting read. So I've had this on my radar forever. I even had my library purchase an ebook of it, and I still have not read it. So I'm really hoping I get to it in November. I don't think I said this at the beginning, but I'm actually getting surgery. Today is the 24th of October. I'm getting surgery on the 26th of October, and I will be, it's on my ankle, so I'm going to be kind of like I'm going to have time off work. I'm not going to be walking around much. I'm not going to be able to do all that much. So I'm hoping that means that I'm going to be reading quite a bit in November. But we'll see. We'll see. The next one is Our History is the Future, Standing Rock versus the Dakota Access Pipeline and the Long Tradition of Indigenous Resistance by Nick Estes. Oh, I forgot to say that Billy Ray Belcourt is an Indigenous author. Nick Estes is also an Indigenous author. It says this book is at once a work of history, a manifesto, and an intergenerational story of resistance. So I'm very excited to read that. Okay, the next one is Care Work, Dreaming Disability Justice. This is a collection of essays centering around disability justice. a movement that centers the lives and leadership of sick and disabled, queer, trans, Black, and brown people with knowledge and gifts for all. I saw that Mariana Moss Books really enjoyed this last year, and I've had it on my radar since then, so I'm hoping to pick it up and read it, probably listen to the audiobook. Okay, the next one I want to read is The Beginning and End of Rape, Confronting Sexual Violence in Native America by Sarah Deer. This is again by an Indigenous author, and it is about so it says, despite what major media sources say, violence against Native women is not an epidemic. An epidemic is biological and blameless. Violence against Native women is historical and political, bounded by oppression and colonial violence. So I think that'll be a good book to read. A lot of these are not very lighthearted, but I don't really go to my nonfiction for lightheartedness. So looking forward to reading that as well. And then, okay, I do have one lighthearted one. That is Screwball Television. This is critical perspectives on Gilmore Girls. This is just multiple essays on Gilmore Girls by different authors. I've watched Gilmore Girls through multiple times. I just think it'll be a fun thing to read. It's kind of still fall vibes here, and I don't know, something about Gilmore Girls feels very fall to me, so that one would hopefully be fun to read. That one I might not get to, but it's in my pile of possibilities. So those are all the ones from my 22 nonfiction books I want to read in 2022. Now we will move on to other nonfiction that I want to read, which isn't that much. It's actually, I think, just one book. One that I own, and it is, again, by an Indigenous author. This is a First Nations author, From the Tundra to the Trenches. So this is a memoir. It looks like the author is Undocumented and changed their name so that they can enlist in the Canadian Forces, and then comes home and just kind of writes his memoir and life story and working with Indigenous youth. So another one that I would like to get to. Okay, and then that's my only other nonfiction that I want to read that wasn't on my list. Now let's get into the books that are for Indigathon. So I'll start. I'm not sure if I'll probably have this finished before November, but I'm still working on it. So Night of the Living Res by Morgan Talley. This is kind of a short story collection, but much more connected than I thought it was going to be based on the way people talk about it. I'm pretty close to the end. I have I think 4 stories left. Good fall winter book, I would say. Okay, and then we have Noopiming, which I started and then stopped because I was reading it too slowly. This really feels like a book you should read in a day. I'm going to be laying on my couch for weeks on end. I feel like I could definitely finish this in a day, so looking forward to reading that. And then I'm trying to continue on with Louise Erdrich. I'm reading based on reading the Love Medicine series based on a not publication order, but chronological order of the books, when the books take place. So my next one is the third one that I'm reading, which is Love Medicine. And I am, again, excited to read this. I don't really know what it's about, but I've really enjoyed the 2 Louise Erdrich books I've read so far. Okay, and then I think that when we think of Indigenous literature, at least in the Western Hemisphere, it's very much North American. I think we think Australian, maybe Pacific Islander. But I have multiple books that were written by authors in Africa from the African Writers series. It's interesting, as I was Googling the term Indigenous and the use of the term Indigenous in Africa. And everything kind of needs to get detailed, but I didn't go and search these authors and ensure that they identify as an indigenous authors, but a lot of them are based around like colonialism coming into like their land and their culture, and like the impacts that that has. So I wanted to count them for this. So the first one, and these are all like more classics. The first one is Ripples in the Pond. This is by a Kenyan author. I'm trying to read through what it's about on the back, and it doesn't really seem like there's a concise way to sum it up, but I would like to potentially get to this. I also have Mission to Karla. It says, having failed his examinations at college, Medza returns to his village in the southern Cameroons in some trepidation. But to his surprise, he finds that as a scholar, even a failed one, his prestige is immense, and so it kind of just goes on from there. And this one, I believe, is translated from the French. Yes, first published in the French. And then this one has a bit of a graphic cover. It's called The Time of the Butcherbird, so we'll just cover that sucker up. This takes place, this is the authors from South Africa. Hila Jenny's people must be moved to Ubuntusten from their land near an arid town of the South African Karoo for the benefit of mining interests. And then it has kind of more people at play. There's something about being led in their resistance, so want to read that as well. And those are all of the books for those two events that I'm going to be considering reading. I could get excited by another book and pick something else up. Oh, do I want to read a different? Hold on. I just thought of a book I want to read. I always love throwing in a short story collection, and I'm almost done with Night of the Living Res. So I've also had this one on my list. I think I had it on my Indigathon list last year, but it's Moccasin Square Garden by Richard Van Camp, short story collection. I've read one of them in a different anthology. I think it was Aliens, and liked it. So looking forward to reading this, hopefully, potentially as well. But I'm definitely not getting to all of those. Those are just my pile of possibilities, books I might read for this. I appreciate if anyone has any ideas of which ones I should pick up. Please let me know. And let me know if you're participating in any of these and the books that you're reading. And that is all I got. So until next time, happy reading.